The note was tucked under the chrome mirror of the most intimidating motorcycle on the street. A jet-black Harley-Davidson Fat Boy with the Hells Angels insignia gleaming on its tank. Jake Reaper Morrison returned from the diner to find the small piece of notebook paper covered in careful, childish handwriting. Dear Motorcycle Man, I think the bad men are hurting my teacher. She has bruises and she's scared. Nobody believes me because I'm just a kid, but I see things. Please help Miss Sarah. She's nice and she doesn't deserve to be scared. From Emma, age 8. P.S. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to touch your bike. It's very cool. Jake stood in the parking lot of Ruby's Diner in Ridgemont, Montana, reading the note 3 times. His weathered hands, scarred from years of motorcycle maintenance, bar fights, and a past he'd rather forget, held the paper gently, as if it might disintegrate. Reaper, you good? His riding brother, Tommy Wrench Collins, emerged from the diner with 2 coffees. He saw Jake's expression, and his casual demeanor shifted immediately. What's wrong? Jake handed him the note. Wrench read it, his jaw tightening. At 45, he'd been riding with the Hells Angels for 20 years, long enough to know that men like them, covered in leather and tattoos, riding loud bikes, looking like society's nightmares, weren't usually who people turned to for help. Especially not 8-year-old girls. Kid wrote this? Wrench asked. Left it on my bike. Could be nothing. Kids have active imaginations. Could be, Jake agreed. But his gut, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 2 deployments in Afghanistan and a decade in the MC, told him different. Or could be a little girl watching her teacher get hurt and nobody's listening. Wrench studied his friend. Jake had been managing the club's legitimate businesses for 2 years now, part of the Angels' slow evolution from outlaws to something more sustainable. But Jake still carried his past, former Army Ranger, former enforcer for the club, former a lot of things that left shadows in his eyes. What do you want to do? Wrench asked carefully. Jake looked across the street at Ridgemont Elementary School, its playground visible through a chain-link fence. A woman stood near the entrance, dark-haired and slim, watching as the last few students were picked up. Even from this distance, Jake could see the way she held herself. Tense, watchful, like someone waiting for the next blow. I want to find out who Miss Sarah is, Jake said quietly, and I want to know if that kid is right. Sarah Mitchell was tired. Bone-deep, soul-crushing tired. She stood outside Ridgemont Elementary and tried to ignore the ache in her ribs where Marcus had shoved her into the kitchen counter last night. It was an accident, she told herself for the 1,000th time. He didn't mean it. The bruises told a different story. So did the way she'd started flinching at sudden movements, the way she'd stopped wearing short sleeves, the way she'd perfected the art of lying. Miss Mitchell? Emma Rodriguez appeared at her elbow, her small face serious. Are you okay? Of course. Sarah's smile felt brittle. Why do you ask? You're holding your side funny, like it hurts. Sarah's heart stuttered. She dropped her hand from her ribs. I'm fine, Emma. Just sore from yoga. Emma didn't look convinced, but her mother's car pulled up before she could press further. As the girl climbed into the back seat, she looked back at Sarah with an expression far too knowing for 8 years old. Sarah's phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Where are you? Dinner better be ready when I get home. Her hands shook as she typed back. Leaving school now. I'll have it ready. She didn't notice the 2 men on motorcycles parked across the street, or the way one of them watched her with focused intensity. Jake followed Sarah Mitchell home, keeping 3 cars between his Harley and her sensible Toyota Camry. Wrench rode alongside him, mentally cataloging everything. The route, the neighborhood, potential exits. Sarah's house was a small ranch on the edge of town, well-maintained with flower beds and a tidy lawn, the kind of place that looked peaceful from the outside. They parked 2 blocks away and walked back, staying in the shadows. Through the kitchen window, they could see Sarah moving around, preparing dinner with quick, nervous movements. Then a man entered the frame, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing business casual. He said something, and Sarah's shoulders tensed. The man moved closer, backing Sarah against the counter. His body language was aggressive, dominating. Sarah tried to move away, and he grabbed her arm, yanking her back roughly. "Son of a bitch," Jake breathed. When Sarah reappeared, she was holding her wrist, and there were tears on her face. The man sat at the table as if nothing had happened, and Sarah continued making dinner with shaking hands. Jake's fists clenched so hard his knuckles cracked. Beside him, Wrench's jaw was granite. "We calling the cops?" Wrench asked quietly. "And say what? We were stalking a teacher?" Jake shook his head. "She'd deny everything anyway. They always do it first." "So what's the play?" Jake thought of that note, of a little girl brave enough to ask a stranger for help because the adults around her weren't paying attention. "We watch," he said finally. "Document everything. Build a case so solid she can't deny it, and he can't weasel out of it." He pulled out his phone, starting to record. "And then we make sure that bastard never touches her again." Over the next 4 days, Jake and Wrench became ghosts in Sarah Mitchell's life. They documented 17 incidents of physical aggression. 3 times Marcus grabbed her hard enough to leave bruises. Jake hated surveillance work, hated the voyeuristic feeling of watching someone's private pain. But he'd learned patience in the Rangers, learned that sometimes the best way to help was to wait for the right moment. That moment came on Friday afternoon. Emma Rodriguez appeared at Jake's bike again, this time boldly walking up in broad daylight. "Are you going to help her?" He turned to find Emma standing there, her backpack nearly as big as she was, her expression fierce and frightened all at once. "Emma, right?" Jake crouched down to her level, making himself smaller, less intimidating. "You wrote me that note." "Yes." She lifted her chin. "I know I'm not supposed to talk to strangers, and my mom would be really mad, but Miss Mitchell is getting worse. Today she couldn't write on the board very well because her hand was shaking, and she wore a turtleneck even though it's warm." Jake's heart clenched. "Covering bruises?" Emma nodded, her eyes bright with tears. "I told the principal, but she said Miss Mitchell probably just bumped into something. I told my mom, but she said I shouldn't make up stories. But I'm not making it up. I see things. I pay attention. If you believe in the power of observation, in trusting your instincts, and in the courage it takes to speak up when something feels wrong, then pause for a moment. Like, comment, share, and subscribe to Bike Diaries. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from today, because this story will remind you that heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages. "I believe you," Jake said quietly. "And you did the right thing, Emma. Sometimes adults miss important things because they're not looking close enough. But you're brave and smart. Will you help her?" Emma's voice cracked. "Please? She's the best teacher I ever had. She doesn't deserve to be hurt." Jake glanced at Wrench, who gave a small nod. "Yeah," Jake said. "We'll help her, but I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Keep being observant. If you see anything that scares you, you tell your parents, okay? And you stay away from Miss Mitchell's house. Don't try to be a hero." "But you're going to be a hero?" Jake's laugh was rough. "Kid, I'm a lot of things, but hero isn't usually one of them. Sometimes, though, you see someone who needs help, and you can't walk away." Emma threw her arms around his neck in a quick hug. "Thank you, motorcycle man." She ran off before Jake could respond. Wrench appeared at his elbow. "So what's the plan, Reaper?"